This is really a scary piece of legislation. This is scarier than anything else the Biden administration is doing, I think, even worse than the open borders policy. But I'm still unclear about whether it's really dead or not, or whether it's going to come back. Joe Manchin has proposed Plan B, and there's all kinds of stories swirling around. So I wanted to check in with an expert today on voting laws and see what he thinks, whether or not we've permanently, at least for the time being, dodged a bullet on this thing, or if it's going to come back like a bad penny later in the year, or maybe at least before the 2022 elections. Joining us now is Hans von Spakovsky. He's a senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation. He runs the Heritage Foundation's Election Law Reform Initiative. He's written a book with John Fund, Who's Counting? How Fraudsters and Bureaucrats Put Your Vote at Risk. He's been on the Presidential Advisory Commission on Election Integrity under Donald Trump. He used to be a member of the Federal Election Commission. And we just wanted to get his take on what's going on with what's now known, it used to be known as HR1 when it was before the House. Now it's S1. Hans von Spakovsky, thanks for being with us here on the Howie Carr Show. Is this thing dead, or is it going to come back to life like Dracula?
Well, my former boss, Ed Fulner, often said there are no permanent victories in Washington, and he was right about that. For the moment, it's dead, but I think two things are actually three things are going to happen. One, this bill, remember, it was like 900 pages, and
right.
It was basically a conglomeration of all these other separate bills that Democrats have been pushing for years. And I suspect what they may do is break it up into pieces and see if they can get separate pieces of it passed. The other thing they're doing is they're already starting to prep to try to push through a second bill. The second bill is called the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. It's HR 4. And, they put John Lewis's name on it. It's like the third name on the
He's
bill.
a martyr.
It's floating around for years.
Yeah,
exactly. They put his name on it because they're hoping it'll make Republicans afraid to oppose it. And what that bill would do is it's basically a back doorway of trying to accomplish a lot of what they wanted in S1. Because in essence, what it would do is give federal bureaucrats at the Justice Department the ability to basically veto changes in state voting laws, particularly on voter ID and voter registration rules, of every state in the country, which, as you know, Howard, that's kind of unprecedented. We're a federal system.
Right.
State governments are independent, sovereign governments, and yet this bill would give federal bureaucrats basically the ability to veto any piece of legislation that state legislators pass.
Unprecedented is one word for it. Unconstitutional is another word I think you could use. Couldn't you?
That's right.
I mean, you can't see if we had an honest judiciary, a judiciary you could trust across the board, you wouldn't be that worried because this would be struck down at the district court level.
Yeah, but we can't trust that.
Right.
Before he left office, Barack Obama appointed almost 40% of the federal judges across the country, and they are the most left-wing ideologues ever appointed to the federal bench. And we actually saw this last year, because remember, last year there were all these lawsuits filed by the Democratic National Committee and their allies like the ACLU and others trying to change and get rid of all these election rules. And all these bad decisions that came down, basically giving them what they wanted, almost every one of the trial court judges who put out a bad decision was an Obama appointee. Now, fortunately, many of those decisions were then overturned when they got up into the appeals court system, including by the U.S. Supreme Court. But
right.
that shows you just how bad, unfortunately, too many of the federal judges are across the country.
I want to play a cut from a congressman I think he's from Queens, Jamal Bowman, and he sort of let the cat out of the bag with what S1 is all about yesterday. Cut 6.
The same relationships need to be used that the president has built over the course of his career to make sure we pass S1. Again, the American people have sent us here to deliver. If we deliver, we maintain power in 2022. If we don't and we show the inability to deliver, then we risk losing power and risk this moment in American history to really push a progressive democratic agenda.
So, in other words, if they don't have S1, they're going to be suffer another defeat, probably of the proportions they suffered in 2010 and 1994.
Yeah, and that was very revealing because, in fact, look, what S1 would do in essence is gut every safety and security rule, every safety and security protocol that states have put in place, and frankly, make it easy to cheat and to manipulate election results. The most obvious example is if you're a state, and there's now over 30 of them, that have an ID requirement when you go vote, which is just common sense, that would be gutted if S1 had become law. No state would be able to enforce any kind of ID requirement.
And it would also allow felons to vote in national elections. So you'd face, in a lot of states, you would face a situation where the state doesn't allow felons to vote in state elections for governor, but they could vote theoretically for Congress, Senate, president. So how are you going to sort out those ballots? It's impossible.
You're right. It's very difficult. I mean, for states to maintain two, they have enough trouble maintaining one voter registration system. Having to maintain two different ones would be next to impossible. So, yeah, they want to override it. And by the way, just on that issue, what this federal bill would have done if it became law is said, well, the moment a felon steps out of prison, his right to vote has to be given back to him, regardless of whether he's still got parole, probation. He's been ordered to make restitution to victims, and it would totally override states like Florida, for example, which said, look, we'll restore your right to vote, but you've got to complete all the terms of your sentence first, including paying restitution to your victim.
But there are also other elements to this. We're talking to Hans von Spakovsky. He's an election law expert at the Heritage Foundation. Well, one of them is the Democrats are already laying the groundwork to explain away their defeat in 2022. They're going to blame it on racism, right? Republican racism.
Yeah.
And number two, yeah. Chuck Schumer is getting ready for the Senate primary against AOC. He can't afford to be seen as doing anything less than the maximum for this, because this is a big AOC thing. She wants to, make sure that the Democrats never lose control by mobilizing this army of felons and illegal aliens and dead people to assure Democrat dominance forever.
Yeah, I'm afraid you're right about that. And in fact, this was all. Look, the vote yesterday, when Republicans filibustered it, it was a political show trial. Because Schumer knew going in that he didn't have the votes to overcome the filibuster. They knew that. They'd been pressuring Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, two Democratic senators. They'd been pressuring them for months to agree to override the filibuster rule, and they had both said, we're not going to do it. So he knew going in yesterday that he would lose the vote on this. So why do it? Well, for political show, because they want to be able to claim when they're running for office that, Republicans are such racists, they're trying to suppress people's votes. Yeah, the problem with that, as you know, is the majority of the public doesn't agree with that.
Right.
They go crazy about voter ID requirements. The latest polling, once again, shows that a vast majority of Americans all think voter ID, of course. That's common sense. And that's a majority of Democrats and a majority of African-American voters who are, the main constituency.
I saw a poll that came out a couple of days ago. It said 80% of the U.S. population favors voter ID laws. And that 80% included only 77% of the white population, meaning that blacks, Hispanics, Asians, et cetera, are more in favor of voter ID laws than whites are. But yet they still, the Democrats on Capitol Hill still get away with portraying these I'll use their word, common sense voting laws as racist.
Yeah, they keep taking that position, and they've been pushing that idea now for years. But it's clearly not working. The American public is actually smarter than that, and they haven't been listening to it. That, by the way, that polling, I think, is a key reason how you probably saw this, that Stacey Abrams in Georgia suddenly came out this weekend and said, voter ID? Well, I've always been in favor of voter ID. That is a straight-out lie.
Right.
But why did she change her public stance on this? I have no doubt it's because she knows, the polling shows, voters just don't agree with that.
Right. Well, she's also lied about others. She said she was never for a boycott of Major League Baseball, of the All-Star game, right? I mean, that's, yeah, she doesn't have a high regard for the truth. I see, Bill Gardner, from our Secretary of State in New Hampshire. I mean, he's a Democrat, and he's been opposed to this from day one. And he says that the New Hampshire doesn't want 15 days of voting before Election Day, and he said that New Hampshire has relatively stringent rules, not that stringent really, especially with same-day registration, but yet New Hampshire has the third highest voter turnout in the country for each of the last 4 presidential elections. So there's no connection between voter turnout and the laws that these states have.
No, that's exactly right. In fact, the Census Bureau reported, they put out a report after every federal election. They released theirs about a month ago. We had the highest voter turnout in last year's election in this century.
Yeah.
That is quite a record, and it shows you that, all these claims of voter suppression. Listen, it's easier to register and vote today than ever before, and people simply don't have problems either registering to vote or casting a ballot.
Yeah, I know, but it's not over till it's over. It's not over till the Republicans win back the Senate and the House, is it?
No, it's not, and that's key. That's going to be key to stopping bad legislation on this issue from going forward. And
on all all issues, but this one in particular, I think this one's the biggest problem for the United States, even worse than the open borders. Hans von Spakovsky, thank you for being with us. We'll be talking to you again if this bad penny resurfaces, which I fear it will. I hope it doesn't, but I fear it will. Thank you. Eden Pure has done it again, this time with the Bio Speed Clean cordless vac that costs a fraction of what the other well-known brands charge. What do I mean by a fraction? I mean you're going to save about $200. This powerful vac has 8,000 kPa suction power to suck up pet hair, cardboard, or just your everyday messes. Also, it only weighs 6 pounds and has no cord, which will cut your cleaning time in half. Never worry again about getting tangled up in and tripping over cords. Those hassles are gone forever. You can walk freely and reach any spot with no restrictions. I wish I'd known about the Bio Speed Clean a couple of months ago. Both Taylor and my daughter Carolyn bought the $400 brand vac.
Yeah, my wife bought it, and the higher the price tag on it, the more desirable it is. So I'm not exactly sure how much it costs, but I'm sure I would have saved at least half had I gone for the Eden Pure, and it works just as good as the one I have at home. We use it here in the office.
Thanks for your endorsement, but you're digging yourself a bigger and bigger hole at home.
Listen, that hole is, I can't crawl out of that one in this century.
It comes with 5 different attachments to easily clean every part of your home and car. It runs on a 35-minute battery and comes with a wall mount so it won't take up floor space in your closet. And it comes apart to become a handheld device, too. That means it's perfect for stairs or sofa cushions. And to make sure the Bio Speed Clean vac traps everything, they have developed a powerful filter system so dust isn't being recycled into the air as you vacuum. So stop lugging that old dinosaur vac around the house and order the Bio Speed Clean today at half the price of other brands at EdenPure.com. You'll save another $20 off plus free shipping with code word HowieClean. That's EdenPure.com. Click the radio banner, then click my name and use code word HowieClean at checkout. I'm Howie Carr.
Be a part of the show. Call 844-500-4242 and mind your manners.
People lose teeth talking like that. If you want to hang around, you'll be polite.
The Howie Carr Show will return in a moment.